His parents were against their union because of a secret. She had a few months to live. Even when the world mocked her, their love blossomed. Even with fading breaths and fleeting smiles, they built a world of color, a world where love was painted on borrowed time. She had one dream, just one dream. But time has a cruel way of testing what the heart can hold. When her colors began to fade, he promised her one thing, that her story wouldn't. This is a story of love, found in pain, and beauty that refused to die. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Bella's story time. Hajun stared at the mirrored ceiling of his penthouse, reflecting the opulence of a life that felt more like a cage than a blessing. Expensive paintings adorned the walls, imported chandeliers sparkled above, and yet, for the 26th time, he felt a gnawing emptiness in his chest. Another birthday. Another display of smiles that were too polite, laughs that were too rehearsed. His father's party planners had been relentless in scheduling a gala, inviting society's elite and reminding him of his duties as the heir of the Han group. But this year was different. Hajun wanted something real, something that couldn't be bought with wealth, prestige, or influence. He wanted to step out of his gilded cage and witness life as it truly was. He had made a decision. He would spend his birthday at a local hospital, volunteering, handing out small gifts, and sharing time with patients. He wanted to see joy that came from the heart, not from curated social media moments. The hospital was bustling with the usual mix of anxious visitors, hurried nurses, and patients quietly enduring their struggles. Ha-Jun, dressed casually in a simple white shirt and jeans far removed from his usual tailored suits, felt exposed among the ordinary. Here, no one knew him. Here, he could just be Ha-Jun. As he walked down the corridor, a nurse handed him a clipboard of patients who were to receive his birthday gifts. But it was the faint sound of someone humming softly that pulled his attention. He turned a corner and saw her, a young Nigerian woman with delicate features, dark brown skin glowing under the hospital's fluorescent lights, and shoulder-length braids framing her face. She was sketching on a small canvas, utterly absorbed, humming a tune that seemed both fragile and defiant. Hajun paused, captivated. Despite the obvious weakness in her posture and the faint pallor under her skin, there was something magnetic about her, a life force that radiated in quiet strength. "Hi," he said awkwardly, unsure how to approach someone so immersed in her world. She looked up, eyes widening slightly, and gave him a small, polite smile. "Hello." There was a hesitance, a careful calculation in her gaze, as if she had learned to measure her trust over time. "I'm Hajun," he continued, holding out a hand. "I'm here today. Well, volunteering. Just trying to do something different for my birthday." Her smile softened, touched with amusement. "I'm Amara, and this is my world," she said, gesturing to the canvas. Her hands trembled faintly, revealing the hidden struggle her frail body carried. "I paint because it reminds me that life can still be beautiful, even when it's complicated." The words struck Hajun with unexpected force. "Complicated?" he asked. "Yes," she whispered, looking down at her painting. "Sometimes the world doesn't give you much time, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't create something meaningful while you're here." As the day unfolded, Hajun found himself drawn back to her room repeatedly. He helped her organize paints, listened as she described her artistic dreams, and even sat quietly, watching her turn the blank canvas into something alive with color and emotion. With each visit, he noticed the subtle struggles she hid, the faint gasp when she rose too quickly, the tired slump of her shoulders, the small scars from IV lines on her arm. And yet, she never complained. Instead, she spoke about the future with a wistful optimism that both inspired and haunted him. Hajun began to realize that what he thought would be a simple birthday gesture was transforming into something far deeper. He wasn't just witnessing suffering. He was meeting resilience, strength, and a vision of life that challenged everything he had been taught about happiness. Amara shared stories of her struggles leaving her family in Nigeria to study in Korea, fighting to pay her medical bills, enduring discrimination as a foreigner, and facing the terrifying reality of her heart condition. Yet she had refused to give up. She had fought to study, to paint, and to hold on to dreams that others might have deemed impossible. By the end of the day, as Ha-jun prepared to leave, he found himself lingering by her side, unsure how to articulate the growing weight in his chest. I didn't expect to meet anyone like you today, he admitted softly. Amara looked at him, her gaze steady despite the faint tremor in her hands. Maybe the world surprises us when we're paying attention, she replied. Her words carried a subtle warning life was fragile, and the joy they were sharing was borrowed time. Walking out of the hospital that evening, Ha-jun felt a strange mix of exhilaration and unease. He had come seeking meaning, and he had found it in the form of a woman whose life was hanging by a thread, yet who radiated a strength and passion that made him question everything about his own existence. That night, as he sat alone in his penthouse, he could not stop thinking about her. He saw the determination in her eyes, the soft curve of her smile, the vivid strokes of her paintings. For the first time, he understood that life's true wealth was not measured in money or power, but in the connections we dared to make and the courage we summoned to live fully, even in the face of inevitable loss. And as Ha-jun drifted into a restless sleep, a single thought echoed through his mind. Tomorrow, I will see her again. And this time, I won't just watch. I will be part of her world. Ha-jun returned to the hospital the next morning, the brisk autumn air carrying a nervous anticipation that made his heart race. The sterile white corridors, the faint antiseptic smell, and the distant murmur of visitors felt strangely comforting now. Today, he wasn't just a visitor. He was a participant in Amara's world, a world colored by resilience, pain, and the quiet rebellion of someone refusing to be defined by illness. He found her in the same room, canvas propped against the window, sunlight streaming through. She was painting, but the strokes were sharper, more deliberate, as though channeling emotions she rarely voiced. When she noticed him, her eyes lit up, but there was a shadow behind the warmth, a fatigue he could see even across the room. "Good morning," Ha-jun said softly, careful not to startle her. "Good morning," Amara replied, her voice steady but tinged with a faint rasp. She adjusted her posture, wincing slightly, and waved him closer. "I was hoping you'd come." As he sat beside her, Ha-jun noticed the intricacy of her painting a landscape that seemed both familiar and fantastical. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "How do you make it look alive?" Amara smiled faintly. "Pain teaches you to see life differently," she said, her eyes meeting his. "When you know the end is near, every moment matters, every color counts." There was a vulnerability in her words that tugged at him, and for the first time, Ha-jun wondered if he had ever truly lived in the moment. Amara's story began to unfold hesitant at first, but with growing trust. She spoke of leaving Lagos at 18, full of hope for a brighter future in Korea. Her parents had worked tirelessly to support her education, sacrificing everything, but she had arrived to a world that was far colder than she imagined. Some professors doubted her ability. Classmates whispered behind her back, and even in small daily tasks, she faced barriers that chipped away at her confidence. "But painting," she said, her voice softening, "was my sanctuary. Even in the hospital, even with the pain, painting was the one place where I controlled the world." Her hands traced the edge of the canvas, and Ha-jun noticed a faint tremor, a reminder of the fragility she carried silently every day. Ha-jun listened, captivated not only by her talent but by her strength. He realized she had endured far more than he could imagine. Financial struggles, cultural isolation, and the constant shadow of her terminal illness. Yet she smiled, laughed, and created beauty in a life that could have been defined solely by suffering. He felt a deep pull in his chest, a mix of admiration, protectiveness, and something far more complex: love. Over the following days, their bond deepened. Hajun began helping her in small ways, bringing fresh paints, organizing her workspace, and sitting quietly while she painted. They shared stories, dreams, and even jokes. In the world outside her hospital room, Hajun began to see a side of life he had never known: the joy in small victories, the exhilaration of being fully present, and the bittersweet beauty of fleeting moments. Yet, shadows lingered. Hajun noticed her occasional wincing, her sudden pauses mid-stroke, and the nights when she refused to talk, staring instead at the ceiling with a faraway look. He could see the battles she fought internally, the fear of dying alone, the worry of burdening him, and the constant pain that never fully disappeared. But she never complained, never asked for pity. Her courage was quiet, fierce, and unyielding. One afternoon, as they sat by the window watching sunlight dance across the hospital floor, Amara turned to him with a hesitant expression. "Hajun, I need you to know something," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I don't have much time. My heart, it won't last forever. I've learned to live in borrowed moments." Hajun's chest tightened. He wanted to deny it, to pretend that she could live forever. But he knew the truth in her eyes. Yet, in that moment, he made a silent promise: "I will make every second with her count." Their connection, fragile yet undeniable, began to attract subtle attention. Nurses whispered. Other patients watched their interactions with quiet curiosity. And Ha-Jun felt the weight of the world outside pressing against the bubble of intimacy they had created. He sensed that his family would never approve of this relationship, but he didn't care. He had discovered a life more real than any gala or luxury his father could offer. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm amber light across the hospital room, Amara finished her painting. She held it out to Ha-Jun. It was a portrait of a small, sunlit courtyard, two figures, indistinct but unmistakably together, framed by swaying trees. Beneath it, she had written in delicate strokes, "For borrowed moments that feel eternal." Hajun felt tears prick his eyes. He realized then that their time together was fragile, yes, but it was also the most alive he had ever felt. And somewhere deep inside, he vowed that their story would not be confined to hospital walls. That life, however limited, would be theirs to claim. As he left the hospital that evening, a storm of conflicting emotions churned inside him: fear, hope, love, and grief. But one thought anchored him through it all. Amara had taught him to live. And for the first time in his privileged, sheltered life, he was ready to fight, not for power, not for wealth, but for the chance to love someone truly extraordinary. The morning sun streamed through the hospital windows, warm and gentle. But today it felt different. Today, it was not just light touching sterile walls. It was the first taste of freedom for Amara. After months confined to the hospital, she was finally being discharged. Hajun waited for her at the entrance, his presence both reassuring and exciting. For the first time, the world outside would feel theirs to explore. Amara emerged from the sliding doors, her fragile frame wrapped in a light coat, eyes squinting in the sunlight. She inhaled deeply, savoring the fresh air, a small smile spreading across her face. "It feels different," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "Like the world forgot I was sick for a moment." Hajun handed her a small bag with essential items for her journey home. "It's just the beginning," he said softly, a hint of excitement in his eyes. "From now on, we'll make every day count." The taxi ride was quiet at first, both of them taking in the city passing by. But as the cab wound through the streets of Seoul, Amara began to share stories she had never told anyone. Her childhood in Lagos, the long nights helping her younger siblings study while her parents worked multiple jobs, The loneliness of leaving her family for Korea, and the heartbreak of being ill in a country where she often felt invisible. Each confession was raw and real, revealing the depth of her resilience. Hajun listened intently, holding her hand gently, feeling a surge of protectiveness he had never known before. "You've been through so much," he said quietly. "And yet, you're still here, still creating beauty. It's inspiring." Amara shook her head, her braids falling slightly over her shoulder. "It hasn't been easy. There were nights I cried alone, afraid I wouldn't see tomorrow, afraid I'd be forgotten, afraid that I wouldn't get to live fully even for a day." Her voice cracked, and Hajun squeezed her hand, silently promising her that she would never have to face anything alone again. Over the next few weeks, life outside the hospital unfolded like a delicate dance. Hajun accompanied her to medical checkups, careful and attentive, making sure she never overexerted herself. But he also introduced her to the joys she had been denied, walking through parks under the crisp autumn leaves, sipping hot drinks in small cafes tucked in narrow streets, visiting art stores where she could experiment with colors and textures freely. Yet, their growing happiness was not without challenges. Hajun's family had discovered his attachment to Amara and disapproved vehemently. "She's a foreigner. She's ill. She's temporary," his father said coldly, warning that Hajun risked everything: inheritance, reputation, and the future of Han Group by choosing her. The words stung, but Hajun had never felt so resolute. For the first time, he knew there was something worth more than wealth or status. Amara, meanwhile, struggled with her own fears. She loved Hajun deeply, but the thought of being a burden, of dying while leaving him heartbroken, gnawed at her. At night, she would stare at her unfinished sketches, tracing her own trembling hands over the canvas, trying to capture moments of happiness she feared would soon vanish. Hajun noticed her quiet moments of sadness, but she never spoke of them, a silent, protective measure to shield him from her pain. One evening, as they walked along a riverside park, Hajun stopped, turning to face her fully. "Amara," he said, voice firm yet tender. "I don't care what anyone says. I want this us, you. Every moment we can have together." Tears welled in her eyes. "Hajun, I want that too. But I'm scared. I don't want to hurt you when the time comes." He took both her hands, holding them tightly. "You've already taught me how to live. Even if time is short, even if it's hard, we will make it beautiful. Every second counts." It was during these days of bittersweet joy that Amara completed a particularly emotional painting, a secret she kept hidden from Hajun. It depicted two figures walking hand in hand along a sunlit path, a stormy sky above them but light breaking through the clouds. In delicate letters at the bottom, she wrote, "Until the last breath." It was a piece that encapsulated their love, their struggles, and the fleeting nature of life itself, a message meant to endure beyond her presence. But the outside world was relentless. Gossip spread among the hospital staff, whispers reached Hajun's social circle, and subtle threats from his family began to encroach. Hajun realized that protecting Amara wasn't just about her health. It was about shielding their love from judgment, societal expectations, and the unrelenting pressures of privilege. One night, after a quiet dinner at a small, dimly lit cafe, Amara leaned her head on Hajun's shoulder, her voice barely above a whisper. "Promise me, Hajun. If anything happens, you won't let this love fade. Promise me you'll remember, even after I'm gone." Hajun felt a lump in his throat. He pressed his forehead to hers. "I promise. You'll live through me, through your art, through every life you've touched. Always." As the city lights glittered around them, it became clear that their love was no longer just a connection between two people. It was a defiance against fear, a challenge to society, and a celebration of life in its rawest, most beautiful form. But amid the happiness, The shadow of her illness and the pressures from his family loomed a silent reminder that the story they were writing together was fragile, precious, and far from over. And hidden in her studio, behind layers of paint and silence, Amara's masterpiece awaited a painting that would one day speak louder than words, revealing secrets, stirring hearts, and leaving a legacy of love that would endure far beyond the fragile span of her life. The crisp air had deepened into early winter, and the streets of Seoul shimmered with holiday lights. Ha-jun and Amara had grown closer than ever, their days filled with quiet adventures, shared laughter, and moments of vulnerability that neither had experienced before. But beneath the beauty of everyday life, an unspoken tension lingered, the shadow of her illness and the reality of a world that refused to be kind to their love. Amara's dream of holding an art exhibition was finally within reach. For months, she had worked tirelessly, pouring every ounce of energy into her paintings despite fatigue and chest pains that sometimes left her breathless. Ha-jun had supported her completely, arranging a small gallery, sending invitations, and ensuring her well-being. It was their shared mission, a symbol of life, love, and defiance against limitations. Yet, the closer the exhibition approached, the more Ha-jun sensed the weight of his family's disapproval. His father's subtle threats escalated into veiled ultimatums. Abandon Amara or risk losing the company, his inheritance, and the carefully curated life he had been groomed for. Ha-jun's heart ached with conflict, duty, and love tugged in opposite directions. But when he looked at Amara, alive, laughing, and glowing with determination, he realized that no amount of wealth could replace the authenticity of what they shared. Amara, despite her condition, radiated joy in ways that humbled him. She recounted her childhood struggles to Ha-jun one evening, her voice trembling but resolute. "I've fought for every inch of life I've had," she said. "I survived nights when my heart felt like it could stop at any moment. I endured loneliness and prejudice, and still, I chose to keep creating." She paused, her eyes glistening. "I want people to see that even broken hearts, broken bodies, and broken circumstances can create something beautiful." The day of the exhibition arrived, a small but elegant gallery filled with soft lighting and the muted hum of anticipation. Ha-jun held Amara's hand tightly as guests arrived, introducing her to curators, artists, and a handful of friends who had come to witness the unveiling. The room was filled with her paintings, vivid landscapes, portraits of imagined worlds, and sketches brimming with life and emotion. Each piece told a story of struggle, resilience, and hope, her life distilled into color and texture. But the highlight, the centerpiece, was still hidden. Amara had completed one final painting in secret, one that captured the essence of their love, their stolen moments of joy, and the inevitability of time. She had titled it "Until the Last Breath." The painting remained covered behind a velvet drape, waiting for the right moment to reveal its truth. As the evening progressed, Ha-jun noticed a subtle shift in Amara's demeanor. Her smile flickered briefly, a faint shadow passing across her delicate features. He followed her gaze to the window, where city lights twinkled like distant stars. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice low. "I'm fine," she whispered, but he could see the strain in her posture. "It's just tiring, but I'm happy. I've never felt more alive." Finally, the moment came. Amara guided the guests toward the centerpiece and slowly drew back the velvet drape. Gasps filled the room. The painting depicted two figures walking hand in hand beneath a stormy sky, yet light broke through the clouds above them. Every stroke was raw, every detail meticulous. Beneath it, in delicate, almost trembling letters, were the words, "Until the last breath." Ha-jun felt his chest tighten. Tears blurred his vision as he looked at her. The painting was more than art. It was a declaration, a confession, and a gift. It captured their love, their struggle, and the fragility of life itself. But as he turned to Amara, he noticed something that made his heart lurch. She was pale, weaker than usual, a faint tremor running through her hands. In the days that followed, Amara's condition worsened. The gallery, the accolades, and the joy of creation had taken a toll on her body. Ha-jun remained unwavering, accompanying her to every checkup, sitting by her bedside during restless nights and refusing to leave her side. The external world, his father's threats, societal judgment, and whispers of disapproval faded in comparison to the immediate, pressing reality of her health. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Amara took Ha-jun's hand, her grip surprisingly strong despite her weakness. "Promise me something," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Promise me that you'll live fully, even after I'm gone. Don't let my life end without leaving a mark on yours." Ha-jun's eyes filled with tears. "I promise," he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. "You've changed everything for me. I will carry you with me every step, every moment." The night was quiet, save for the distant hum of the city below. Ha-jun sat awake, holding her hand, feeling the weight of love, loss, and the fleeting nature of life. Amid the beauty of the exhibition and the celebration of Amara's talent, a chilling realization settled over him. The time they had together was borrowed, fragile, and slipping faster than he could grasp. Yet in that fragility lay the most profound lesson of all. Love, Ha-jun realized, was not about permanence. It was about intensity, presence, and courage, daring to love fully, even when the end was inevitable. And Amara, with her unwavering strength and secret masterpiece, had taught him to do just that. Winter had fully settled over Seoul, dusting the city with a soft layer of frost. Ha-jun and Amara sat in her apartment, the air filled with the scent of drying paint and sunlight from the wide windows. It had been weeks since the exhibition, and life outside the hospital felt both exhilarating and fragile. Amara's health had declined subtly, her breaths shorter, her movements slower, yet she remained radiant, laughing at small jokes and painting with a determination that left Ha-jun in awe. One morning, after a quiet breakfast, Amara handed Ha-jun a small wrapped package. "Open it," she said, her smile tinged with melancholy. Hesitantly, he unwrapped it to find a small sketchbook, each page brimming with vivid emotional paintings he had never seen. His eyes caught on a single page at the back, a painting of the two of them walking hand in hand beneath a stormy sky, light breaking through the clouds. At the bottom, written in her delicate hand, "Until the last breath." Ha-jun's hands trembled. He felt the weight of the message. This was her gift, her final declaration of love, and a reminder that life, though fleeting, could be profoundly beautiful. "Amara," he whispered, tears brimming in his eyes. She reached out and took his hand, her grip surprisingly firm. "Ha-jun, I've lived more fully in these few months than I ever imagined I could. You've given me joy, courage, and love. Promise me you'll keep living, even after I'm gone." Ha-jun's throat tightened. He pressed his forehead to hers. "I promise. You've changed me in ways I can never repay. Your life, your love, it will stay with me forever." Days passed, and Amara's condition worsened. Hospital visits became more frequent, though she insisted on staying at home as much as possible. Ha-jun cared for her tirelessly, holding her hand through chest pains, accompanying her to checkups, and simply being there, a constant presence in the face of inevitable loss. Each moment became precious, a borrowed second of eternity. Then, on a quiet winter night, Amara passed away peacefully in her sleep. Ha-jun, sitting beside her, felt a crushing grief unlike anything he had ever known. Yet amidst the sorrow, there was an undeniable beauty in the way she had lived fully, fiercely, and with purpose. Her final message lingered in his mind. Live fully, love deeply, leave a mark. In the weeks that followed, Ha-jun organized a memorial exhibition in her honor. The gallery displayed her paintings, each capturing her resilience, dreams, and unwavering spirit. But the centerpiece remained her secret masterpiece, the painting titled "Until the Last Breath." As people viewed it, they were moved not only by her artistic skill, but by the story of a love that had defied illness, culture, and societal barriers. Hajun walked through the gallery, feeling Amara's presence in every brushstroke. He realized then that her life, though brief, had left a permanent imprint not just on him, but on everyone who witnessed her work. In the quiet of the gallery, he whispered to himself, "You live on, Amara. In me, in this art, in every life you touched." Years later, Hajun founded the Amara Foundation, dedicated to supporting young immigrant artists and patients battling terminal illnesses. Every year, on the anniversary of her birthday, he visited the hospital where they had first met, leaving a painting at her favorite window, a quiet tribute to the woman who had taught him to live. Though her physical presence was gone, her love remained a constant force shaping Hajun's life, guiding his decisions, and reminding him that even the briefest moments, when filled with courage, laughter, and love, could become eternal. And somewhere, in a small gallery in Seoul, her painting two figures walking hand in hand beneath a stormy sky, light breaking through the clouds, continued to speak. It whispered of hope, resilience, and a love that lasted until the last breath.